So obviously he got sacked with immediate effect.
When they actually come to do the work, actually they could not do it at all. So we had to unfortunately let them go.
The big shift we've had is having people aligned with our vision, but then also, and it's been a big learning for me and it's helped me a lot in my day-to-day, is
what comes first, the cash flow or the employees? Well, if we've got the cash flow, we might be overwhelmed and the service might dip. But if we've got the employees, the cash might not be there.
Have a look at what industry you're in, what network you've got around you, because it's like...
Sometimes people can talk a good game and not actually deliver on...
I had a portfolio. I was managing tenants anyway. So part of it for me was...
Look that, yeah, the new estate agency, it doesn't exist.
You've got red hair and you want to sell your house.
Yeah. We only work with redheads.
So today's topic, I think we've got two ends of the spectrum, I think, in terms of specifically a service-based business within the property industry. So Shane, for those obviously that haven't watched your episode yet, you've got CoArch, which is a architect practice, which is maybe not a startup completely, but certainly in the early stages of that growth and, you know, the business age. I mean, how old is the business? 2 years?
2019.
Obviously, the business was established in 2019, but really only taken seriously from 2022, which was obviously when you were more involved in that side of things. So we've got that side of it, which is, we'll say, although it's 2019, we'll say it's 2 years, 3 years, where you've obviously been involved as well. And then we've got Ali that has got a business that obviously you acquired that was set up in 1881. So I like to think that is of a, well, if it was a whiskey, it'd be very expensive. So, and I think it's going to be interesting to get the different sides of the growing pains, because I know obviously for you, Ali, you had the lettings agency, which was a startup. So you've kind of seen that process. You've kind of got the end result now. Obviously, your growing pains are different versus obviously for you, Shane. And then hopefully we'll bring the episode together where if anyone is looking at diversifying in property, how they can go about doing that and having that trading element as well as the investor side. So Shane, what sort of things are you, in terms of, we'll say headaches, or growing pains, that's probably a better phrase. What sort of growing pains are you kind of going through in the early stages of CoArch?
So at the moment, where we're at the moment, it's actually in employment actually. So because we've grown quite quickly off the back of like the marketing network and we did last year and getting an influx of project inquiries, it means to keep with the service level for our clients, we need to hire another architect. And we quite quickly realised that it was difficult for the reason of, I've heard this quite a lot, and like I've learned quickly actually, which is good, about sort of hiring slow and firing fast. Mm-hmm. So last year we hired someone fairly quickly. To be fair, after a couple of interviews, Zoom call, phone call, and then in person. And that person turned out to not be right for the business because they sort of over promised or over sort of said what they did on their CV, if you like. And then when they actually come to do the work, actually they could not do it at all. So we had to unfortunately let them go quite quickly. And then it was like, right, the next person we need to sort of hire a bit slower. And we did, and they're still with us today. Now they came on board November in last year, and it was a great hire. And that's sort of one of the pains. But again, with the project inquiries that are coming in, we need to hire again. And we've interviewed quite a lot of people since like mid-Feb, and we haven't found the right candidate at the moment. So there's that, I think, is a bit of a growing pain. But also the growing pain actually for us in particular is having the project influx coming in, and which is, you know, you're getting money into the business and it's like, oh great, we're starting to make a little bit of money now, but then actually if we have to hire again and then that money's going to them, and it's like, do we increase the the margins on the projects, but then you could actually lose projects because you then may be a bit too more on the expensive side. So it's trying to find that balance whilst trying to grow the business at the same time. So that's two of the main sort of growth pains we're having at the moment.
I think that's one of the hardest things in a startup is it's almost like a chicken and egg scenario. It's, what comes first, the cash flow or the employees? Well, if we've got the cash flow, we might be overwhelmed and the service might dip. But if we've got the employees, the cash might not be there, and it's finding that balance, particularly in the early stages. I mean, from your side, then Ali, what kind of growing pains have you got at the moment?
Yeah, so as you've touched on, mine was an acquisition. So each acquisition will be different based on the business you've taken over and what state that was left in when you took over. The big focus for us was obviously getting the culture right and making sure that everyone's pushing in the same direction, is on board and has the same values as you. That for us was actually quite, I'm not going to say plain sailing, but with having quite a young team who were also desperate for change, they were very welcoming of fresh blood, new ideas, new energy, and we're really on board with it. We've got a really diverse team though, and I've been really surprised that even we've got someone who works for us who I think has been at Heywoods now for over 20 years. Wow. It might even be 25 years now.
Wow. And
even they're in the accounts departments. They've gone from rotor decks back in the day. I didn't even know what one of those was.
I have no idea what one of them is.
Yeah, exactly. But it's old school, like flipping it over when you've done it, and very, very paper-based, to now she's like pioneering, right, let's get on. I know you've mentioned Xero, let's go on Xero. And, our payment systems have completely changed as well. So that side of it's been great. I suppose the pain points can be when you do an acquisition is from an operational point of view, compared to a startup where you can build that exactly how you want. It's done your way. You work at, a lot of the things you'll work out as you go, and then you'll say, right, that works for us. And then you can grow with that. Whereas we have to obviously inherit the way things are done, which can take a lot of time. So maybe at times feels like you're doing 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Maybe at times 1 step forward, 1 step back, because you're having to keep the wheels in motion as to what you're already doing. And you've just got to be really, I suppose, flexible in one way to say, yeah, I can not trying to fix everything overnight, just identifying one thing and fixing it. Because if you just turn the place up overnight, you're going to have a mass exodus and no one's going to like you.
Yeah, of course. But it kind of, they're both similar in a way, in a sense of employing the right person, which is obviously what you tried to do and it didn't work out. And then obviously you're trying to maintain the staff and not rock the boat too much. And I think the initial stage of that, obviously where you're at in terms of just starting to deliver on that kind of employment section, what sort of steps are you taking at the moment to, I suppose, the lesson that you learned from the first employee, what mistakes did you make there and what are you trying to do differently about that now?
So when we first went to that scenario that when we hired that person, the first person, to be fair, we did a job ad and we had a lot of people come in, and to be honest, we picked the best person that we thought from basically just based off their CV. And I thought we'd asked all the right questions. And what we didn't do is actually get any references. That's one thing. I think because we thought it was getting these influx of projects, we needed someone in quickly. We'd interviewed probably about 5 people, and then they were the best of that bunch. And we didn't get any references. We didn't check out. I mean, the thing is that they even had the portfolio of works, but I actually learnt later down the line from the team member that we got now that actually she knows people that have put works on there that they've worked on, but it hasn't been their complete project that they worked on. So they might have done a couple of bits and bobs on a drawing, and actually they didn't do that whole project. So that could have been the case with this chap that we hired. So I should have got references and maybe even asked them to do like an example project as part of like a test, if you will, because as a small business, it's crucial that we get the right person in that can carry out the job. And we actually found as well, I guess going forward, I should say, that's what it would be. So now that we're like sort of hiring at the moment, we are checking, getting references now, and we're getting them to have like come in and do a paid experience day. So come in and do a measurement survey, work with our architectural designer, because ultimately they're going to be supporting the architectural designer. So we're getting them to work together and then getting feedback from the architectural designer, say how were they on site, are they doing what they say that they can do on their CV, and we'll get them to draw up the site survey as well. So it's paid experience to work with us for a day, and we don't mind that, because it's almost like paying a little bit first to see if they're any good, and then we'll get the best to come on board then.
That's good. I think you need that process, because I think you really don't know that individual when they're sat down. If they're anything like yourself or me or Ali, and you're good talkers and you can talk a good game, sometimes people can talk a good game and not actually deliver on what it is. I hope all three of us can actually deliver on what we say.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
But it's so difficult in the early stages. I mean, I can share some horror stories, but I don't know whether you can, obviously being still in the same business. I mean, in my prior business, we made some terrible recruitment decisions, and the character of those individuals just shifted. You can't sat down with them. You can't judge a character specifically what they're potentially going to do further down the line. I mean, we had one individual who obviously had a mortgage brokerage. They were putting on their suitability report that they weren't charging a broker fee, and then they were charging the client a broker fee, but having that paid into their own bank account. And they were only there for 2 months, and they must have done about 4 or 5 grand's worth of broker fees. And it was only because that individual went on holiday, and we had a very structured compliance process, and his admin requested bank statements and obviously saw broker fee paid to member of staff, and the admin said to the compliance manager, I thought there was no broker fee on this. Obviously there wasn't. And anyway, we phoned, I think it was 20 clients they'd done over those 2 months, and it ended up like about 75% of them he'd taken a broker fee and told us no broker fee. So obviously he got sacked with immediate effect. So I mean, it's difficult employing people, but in the same breath, I mean, you can probably allude on this point. You've got some fantastic people that work in your business.
Yeah, I think being on a larger platform, you've probably got more scope to play with, and you've got more credibility to hire the best people. I've always said from day one, we just want the best team to grow the best business. As you say, it's a service business at the end of the day. And I'm a big believer that any service business, regardless of what you go into, estate agency is what I went into, but service business is, the core values are the same regardless. Granted, yours is a bit more of a professionalism with architects that do need qualifications and certain skill sets, but the big shift we've had is having people aligned with our vision. But then also, and it's been a big learning for me, and it's helped me a lot in my day-to-day, is understanding different personality types. That obviously starts with understanding my own personality type, but I'm, I've always using it's not a great one. I've used an analogy of like a football team. Mm-hmm. I said, we just need some more James Milners. I'm not even a football fan, but I met James Milner retired about 10 years ago, but we just need some more Milners in the team, which basically means people just come in, get their head down, crack on, and are very efficient. But then I've got my rock stars. You got your Cristiano Ronaldos. They're your business winners. Imagine if Man United had a team of purely Ronaldos. It just wouldn't work. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate one played for Man City and one played for Man United. So not a great analogy, but putting that into a more actual structured and robust way of doing it is understanding different profile types and personality types. And that's helped me for, there's loads of different tools out there to understand different personality types. There's like color schemes, there's disc profiles, whatever it might be. But I know where I am roughly on the spectrum. I think, you have dominant characteristics to yourself. But then when I'm speaking to someone within the business who's on the opposite side of that spectrum, it creates challenges and tension, or I might come away from that conversation and think, God, they're being difficult. But it's kind of taken all the emotion out of that now. And I suppose when you come back to your hiring process, when you're trying to get an A team or firing on all cylinders, you've got to know where your gaps are, and you can't just have a team of strong, fiery individuals that'll go out and win the business. It's got to be a blend of all those different personality types.
Yeah, because off the cuff, I'd probably say you're that fiery character that's going out there winning the business, and you probably need another technical draw, which I'm assuming that's what you're trying to employ, isn't it?
Yeah, so actually on that point, we do use something called the wealth dynamics.
Okay.
So I took the wealth dynamics for the first time in 2022 and actually changed my life in terms of just understanding more like character types. And that's
what are you on the?
I'm a blaze, so which is the fire type.
Yeah.
So you're actually absolutely spot on that one. And actually going out there and when I'm networking, I actually probably, I'm going to confidently say 99% of the time I guess people's profiles correctly. I'll go, I reckon you're that type. And I go, take the test, takes 2 minutes, called the Genius U test. And it's free to take online. And they always message me after, goes, you were right. And so it's like you said, like, I know what we all need in the business. So when I'm sort of employing for myself, so when I take myself out of the business and I want to get another me, I need to look for a blaze. That's the salesperson, the person that loves people, gets energy off others, very good in social environments. That's what a blaze does. You've got your dynamo, which is my business partner. He's the ideas man. Rubbish at finishing stuff, but got the ideas, the implement, and I'll be the one to sort of implement that and drive in the business. Then you've got your tempo at the bottom, which is if you've got a system and process, you give them that system and process and they'll follow it down to a T, and they're very just like task orientated, tick, 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 tick. And then you've got your steals that, very detail orientated. They don't like bullet points. They're like looking into the detail of things, long emails, spreadsheets, introverts, and they're like your accountants, for instance, So as long as you know who you need to employ, get them to take that test when we employ, then that's definitely helped us, and it's helped me, and it's helped people in business that I know as well.
Yeah, I think you alluded to it in your episode, the yin and yang scenario. It's important to have that balance and different skill sets, because if you had 11 Cristiano Ronaldos on the pitch, you're not going to score goals. They're just going to probably argue who's the better player.
All the prima donnas.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas you need James Milners or, I don't know, the Rio Ferdinands, Gary Nevilles that are just going to get stuck in, but also the pretty, all the touch work and the detail, and, it's finding that balance. And it's also creating that balance as well by being strategic and using that analogy of hiring slow and firing fast, because I think a lot of, depending on who you are, I guess, but a lot of business owners struggle with that fire part. They think, I need to keep this individual on. But the way I always see it is, if that one individual upsets the whole business and creates a problem for 10 individuals, then really you've got to make a decision on that. That one individual is affecting 10 other people's livelihoods. So it's a trade-off of one. And yes, it is brutal and it's really hard for people sometimes, but it's just the nature of the beast and being a business owner and having that responsibility. And you can't always get it right.
Yeah, you're dead right. And inherently I'm a people pleaser. So I don't like confrontation. I try and avoid difficult conversations. I just want everyone to be happy. Obviously, nature of the role that I'm in, I've had to push myself out of that comfort zone. But the thing that makes that decision a hell of a lot easier for me, because I'm a people pleaser, is if I know the damage that's causing to someone else. So, I'll do the hard things because I'm doing it for other people, not necessarily for myself. And I know it's for the best for everyone else. So you're dead right in saying that, and it comes back to as well, you can have really good people, but if they turn up and they're miserable or they're badly impacting everyone else, no one wants to be a part of that. And it's about doing things for other people, I suppose, rather than just because your ego doesn't like them, or, don't take it personally.
Yeah, it's got to be black and white, isn't it? That's business. Yeah, there is no emotion in business. What happens. It's not that I disagree or that I don't like you, or that emotion is irrelevant. It's whether the black and white of it. Do you fit in? Do you deliver? Are you going to grow with this business? And it is literally that simple.
Yeah.
There's something as well, if I remember it correctly, it's like each individual, where are they on this grid? So there's the rat, the terrorist, the superstar, and the puppy. So imagine you've got this you've sort of got this. I'm going to show you like this. You've got this grid. You've got the rat down here. You've got the terrorist up here. Superstars in the corner. Everyone wants to be up here, right? You got the puppy down here. So the rat is someone. Imagine you've got the culture. So they've got the culture, and then you've got the actual person that can do the job. So the rat's the person you employ that can't do any of them. They're not with the culture and they can't do the job. Yeah, so that you got to get rid of those quick. Then you got your terrorist where they can do the job, but they're actually impacting the culture. They're doing the work, but they're the ones that are like they're saying stuff behind your back. They're negatively impacting people with crap, I'm having a crap day today, and it's like putting that on others that can impact the culture. They're your terrorists that are doing stuff in the background. They're a little bit harder to nip in the bud. Then you got your puppies that aren't, they're the very culture. They love being in the company, but they're not quite there yet on being the superstar of the business. But you can train a puppy. That's why they're called the puppy. And then your superstars are both up to date with the culture, they're very in it, and they're great at what they do. So it's just recognizing where that each individual is on that quadrant.
I love that. I've never heard that before, but I like that.
Definitely, tools like that definitely make it a lot easier. And I remember like one of the first coaching sessions, taking this completely away from culture, but more about just general business decisions. If you went out to a negotiation to win a business for whatever it might be, if you're turning up to emotionally, again, being a people pleaser, I want to come out of that with something that we're all happy with. But someone actually took all that emotion out of it for me once and said, well, what lifestyle do you want? What do you want this business to look like? And really made it granular. It's like, right, well, you need to be winning business at this much per unit, or on average, this needs to be your fee. And if you do that 100 times, you'll get to where you want to be. But if you drop it by 20%, it's going to take you twice as long, or 2 years, or you're not going to make it. And going back to culture or building the right team, these kind of tools just make it a hell of a lot easier, because then it's not how I feel. It's just, that's just what it is. And I'm just using the tools that are there in place.
Yeah. And it is black and white, isn't it? In that kind of degree, obviously there's a lot of technicality that goes with it, but you can break business down to fit into this kind of process or status quo that, obviously it molds and it changes, but whether you're selling oranges or whether you're selling houses, the process is the same in principle. Obviously, the delivery is different, but as long as you can understand that sales are sale, negotiation is negotiation, obviously it's just how you approach that. But from a black and white perspective, you can rely on these different elements. Obviously, that one, that's brilliant. I'm going to steal that.
No probs.
I'm not going to give you credit either.
We're going vermin hunting after this. Get rid of the rats.
Yeah. So I think, that you can break it down into being very simple, which I think is why I think mentors who aren't particularly good can sell dreams to people, because they make it sound so easy. The delivery of that is a completely different game, but the principle of it is the same. It's the delivery that is and the action taken. Obviously, we were talking about this in our episode. The action, that's what is the most impactful part of it, because we can sit here and talk shit all afternoon if we wanted to, but it's not going to generate us money. It's just hopefully going to provide a bit of value and add to everything else that we're doing. It might produce a bit of money. If anyone needs to sell their house in Stoke-on-Trent, speak to Alistair. And anyone that needs planning permission, speak to Shane.
Anyone wants to sponsor this podcast,
speak to me. Yeah. Cheers, mate. Appreciate that. Welcome. That's 3 plugs. Welcome to the podcast. So I think obviously both have property interest. That is the vein of this podcast. I think is the vein of all 3 of us sat here. What advice would you give to someone that's maybe investing at the moment, has left their job, maybe looking to get into a service-based business or a business that is orientated around the property? I know you kind of spoke about it in the episode slightly, obviously, when you bought the block of flats, and it made sense. So what advice, we'll start with you, Ali, on that. What advice would you give to someone that's maybe looking to start a business? Obviously, they need an idea first. That goes without saying. But then to go from idea to implementation, what did you do to go from, I'm going to do this lettings business myself, to actually then implementing it?
I think if you're quite driven to have business, or like you say, service businesses, having ones that can marry up and serve one another is really helpful. As you say, that's what I did. I had a portfolio. I was managing tenants anyway. So part of it for me was, well, if I just pay someone a salary, then it's no different to me paying the agent that I was going to pay anyway. So I was halfway there to making that step anyway. But then since what we've done then, it's stuff that serves within that. And I know some really good local business people who, you know, one, for example, they've got their accountancy firm, but then they've invested in financial services. And I appreciate I'm probably jumping the gun here, but they've everything they've done is harmonious to the other one. So that when they get a client come through the door, their USP is, I'm not just doing accountancy services for you, I'm your full whole advisor. So for us, it's anything property related will help you. You know, we can help you with mortgages. We've got someone that we work with. We can help you with in building insurance. That's the big one. When I go out and speak to landlords, like, are you insured? Oh, what do I need? They never really understand it. And I obviously am not an insurance broker, but I understand the difference between, well, your property's been sat empty for a while now. It's probably not insured because typically it's 30 days on a standard buildings policy. And I think if you can have that all-encompassing element of advice, that's what differentiates you from someone that's just competing on price. So I appreciate I've gone on a tangent there.
No, I think it's good.
But I think if you can serve every need for that person on that part of that industry, granted, if they're coming to you with a property need, don't start advising them on dental healthcare because it just won't marry up. But if it's all a part of, you need to know this, you need to do this, you need to do that, if you can have at least connections and you can be one part of that journey, then I think that's pretty, I mean, architecture is a perfect one. We had someone come to us recently with a plot of land. Like, I can't get planning, I've had planning refused on it. And I know a load of local architects, so it's quick few phone calls. One of them said, yeah, I've done stuff in that area. I appreciate it's outside of the village settlement, but I can help them that. So I passed it on to them, and, you know, I'm not going to get anything off the back of that straight away, but one day, hopefully it'll come back round.
To be honest with you, I think my question was a difficult question. I think the way you answered it was great. And I think what I picked out from that was, and I've been in this situation, and I definitely think this is obviously what's happened with you in the architect service, is that every business that I've gone into that's a spin-off of property has never been forced. It's always just happened. It's always just been like a natural thing. It's not been like, right, sitting in my room for a week and thinking, right, well, I need an idea. It was just an opportunity that presented itself at the right time. And I'm assuming that must be the sort of same for you and CoArch.
Yeah, definitely. So I always wanted to own a business, but with someone else. That was sort of one of my goals, and someone else that aligned with what I wanted to do and shared similar core values. And then obviously Ashley came along and obviously offered me to become a partner in the business, and it aligned with where I wanted to go as well in the property development world. So I get to work with multiple developers. I have quite a passion to see things from just land to buildings, huge apartment schemes, and I really, really enjoy that. So it's like, this aligns with what I do. I get to be in the world of architecture. I can see things from initial idea, concept, design stage until the full completion. So it was, naturally just going into that really for me. Yeah, it's a no-brainer. I
suppose to add to that then, to follow-up question, what led you to that decision of, right, let's do it, let's go for it?
The opportunity to own a business, right, without starting one.
Makes sense.
I guess to be simple with that, and I guess chatting to Ashley as well, we've actually have another business which we've done nothing with at the moment, but it is incorporated. It's called, so we got CoArch, which is the architecture practice. Then we've got something called CoPromo, and the idea of that is to do like land and / barn promotions. So get the planning on. The focus is barn conversions. So get the planning on barns. So work with landowners that have just dilapidated or unused barns, get the planning on them or the prior approval on them, and then sell them to our connections, our developers that are actively looking for projects, whether they're barn conversions, and then take the some of an uplift. So we'll do all the architecture work. We'll have the other consultancies that can help get that through the planning. We'll have the developers that will buy them as well, and then our fees. So we'll do all that up front. Our only fee is once the developer buys it, we'll have some of that 20% of that profit.
Okay, yeah. So a bit like option planning gain kind of thing.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah. And again, the theme is that is a natural idea that bolts onto, which is obviously what you were saying.
Yeah. Can I just add something to that as well? Because you've just made me think that I think to answer your original question, which I didn't, but to answer it this time round, is if you're sat there thinking, right, what revenue business am I going to build off that supports my investment business? Unless you've literally just come out of school, look at what connections you've got. So, if you can niche down on something, it might not seem like there's a big market there, but you'll cut through the noise all day long and you'll find your target client that's aligned with you and speaks the same language. So prime example that springs to mind is people that support, they were footballers, then they've started investing in football, in property. They're retired footballers. And then they've gone out and supported other footballers to invest in property. That's their leg up. There's no point trying to start from the ground up and compete with everyone else on something else. Find what your thing that cuts through the noise is, and then that would, to me, would be an obvious choice. And there's quite often, whatever your connections are from prior careers. I know someone who supports literally dentists to invest in property because he was a dentist.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of trust there. He doesn't need to build trust because they already trust him.
Makes sense. I mean, I tried to jump to a completely different industry when I obviously sold my shares. And I just found that it was like starting from ground zero again. Yeah. Whereas like with the show, it's gone from strength to strength. And that's not because I've done anything particularly amazing. It's because I've built up, 5 or 6 years worth of property contacts, and I can lean on people that, once leaned on me with different things to help promote the event and gain that traction. And I think it's been that backlog of work that was put in the 5 years before to be able to then, right, okay, I've got this. And I've obviously landed on a niche with the property developer show, providing something for property developers, which isn't out there already. And obviously the momentum with that, if I was doing it 5 years ago, it would have probably fallen flat on its face. But I use the contacts that I've got to get good guests like yourselves on the podcast and promote the event through obviously the developers network in Birmingham, another plug, and be able to sort of momentum the business that way. But I think it definitely touches on that point of, because the industry that I was looking at was haulage. I mean, I'd never been in a wagon before in my life, but I just thought it was a good business, good scalability, make acquisitions in it, it's asset backed. I was just thought it's got to work. But yeah, had
you been a truck driver for 20 years, then maybe it would have been a different conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I'd have contacts, I'd been doing it for years, and pretty much everyone I spoke to kind of said the same thing, like, you haven't got enough experience. I was like, yeah, I know that. But the world's my oyster. So
you're spot on actually with what you said, with when you're potentially starting out or you'll start figuring out what to do. Have a look at what industry you're in, what network you've got around you, because it's like, it's easier. It would be definitely easier for us now if we wanted to go into a business that was a bolt onto the property ecosystem. It would be easy because of all the contacts we've got together. Even us three, like, we all know each other now. I'd happily introduce my contacts to you, and you, and I hope vice versa.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's like Richard Branson, like for instance, him and Elon Musk, just as some scenarios. If they wanted to start a business tomorrow, that, imagine what their black book's like. It'll be a hell of a lot easier to start something and scale it quickly because they know the right people and they've been networking for years. And it's like us. So I've met lots of people last year, so my black book's like pretty big now. So if I wanted to start something with the property ecosystem, I'd know who to go to and how to do it roughly.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't think we're going to be buying Twitter anytime soon. But obviously that was on the basis that, he is a multi-billionaire, but he raised a lot of money to buy Twitter. And if he, well, I suppose it's it's probably an extreme example. Heywoods is probably more realistic and buying that. So we'll aim at that.
Yeah.
Should we buy an estate agency together?
Yeah, what we're going to call it?
Property
Redheads.
Redheads Estate Agency.
Perfect, we're in. Right, sign the
We'll
documents.
plug that as well.
Plug that, yeah. The new estate agency doesn't exist.
You've got red hair and you want to sell your house.
Yeah. We only work with redheads. That's it.
I only work with people with no hair, so. Great stuff. Do you know what? That's a good point to probably round this episode up. I think obviously good topic and good conversation. I think definitely some good stuff to unpick there for people. So thanks for both for coming on today.
Well, thank you.
Great stuff. See you again soon.